Most of the APEC leaders attending the two-day meeting are now in Manila. They include U.S. President Barack Obama and Chinese President Xi Jinping, who both arrived today. Freddie Abando reports.
U.S. President Barack Obama arrived late this morning on board Air Force One to attend the Leaders Summit of the Asia-Pacific Economic Conference. He was welcomed by Defense Secretary Voltaire Guzmin. Before Manila, the American president attended the just-concluded summit of G20 member states in Ankara, Turkey. High on the agenda of the summit were discussions of the economies from the leading industrialized nations and the emerging economies. However, the well-planned bombing attacks of ISIS terrorists in Paris, which led to countless casualties, diverted the G20 agenda on the economy to counter more possible attacks against the West, to include the United States. President Obama is expected to raise concerns of the global community on the rising threat of ISIS, given the recent change in its strategy to sow fear and terror beyond its strongholds in Syria and Iraq. The U.S. president will be in Manila for 3 days. President Obama and President Aquino will conduct bilateral talks. Both leaders will discuss the country's territorial dispute with China. Obama is also expected to push America's bid to attract the Philippines to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP. The United States is the second largest trading partner of the Philippines after Japan. In 2013, it's the second biggest source of foreign investments. It ranks third for tourist arrivals in 2014. In 2012, the United States provided $158.8 million in development and defense assistance for the Philippines. The United States is the biggest economy in the world. This is the second visit of Mr. Obama. His first was a state visit in April 2014. Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived early this afternoon. This is the first visit of the Chinese leader to the Philippines. Xi was welcomed by Finance Secretary Cesar Purisima and Chinese envoy to the Philippines, Ambassador Zhao Zhanhua. Xi governs the second biggest economy in the global community. Last week, in a briefing in Beijing, Chinese Deputy Foreign Minister Li Baodong said President Xi has no plan to tackle China's territorial dispute in the APEC summit. The Philippines' territorial row with China is now pending before the Permanent Arbitration Court at The Hague in the Netherlands. Despite the dispute, economic and trade ties between the Philippines and China continue to gain ground. The two nations have a long history of trading that can be traced to the 7th and 9th century of the Tang Dynasty. Since 1974, when diplomatic ties was forged between Manila and Beijing by the late President Marcos, China has emerged as one of the country's major trading partners. The Philippines is a rising destination of Chinese tourists. There's a two-way exchange of investments by Filipino and Chinese businessmen. Tomorrow, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will arrive in Manila. He was a state guest in 2013. Abe hosted President Aquino's state visit to Japan last April. Both leaders are expected to discuss their countries' bilateral and trade ties. Japan is the #1 trading partner of the Philippines. It's a major destination for exports. It's the #1 source of development assistance, the second biggest source of foreign investments, and ranks second in tourist arrivals from Japan. Japan is the third largest economy in the world. Singapore's Prime Minister Shen Long is also arriving tomorrow for the APEC summit. Singapore is the leading economy in ASEAN, rating #1 in the global competitiveness ranking of the World Economic Forum. Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev will represent President Vladimir Putin. He arrives tomorrow from Moscow on the eve of the APEC summit. Economic ties between the Philippines and Russia is moving at a slow pace. In recent years, Russian tourists are discovering and visiting the country's beaches, to include Boracay and Palawan. Peru's President Ollanta Humala will arrive tomorrow. President Aquino and President Humala will discuss trade ties between their two nations. For the People's Television Network, this is Freddie Abando reporting.